Fondant. I have been down the rabbit hole on fondant, looking at fondant recipes and different formulations. There's places you can get it it's already made. It's been all over the place the last couple of years. I've seen the Hive Alive stuff and the Winter Be Kind, and then there's sugar bricks, and used to be the mountain camp method. I guess that's still around. But we're going to go and do a little experiment today, make a batch of fondant, see if I can figure out which of these recipes is actually going to work, and try to make a little bit of fondant for some wintertime feeding. So stick around, should be fun. So here's our setup. I got a turkey fryer and a big old turkey fryer pot that we're going to use. And I saw all kinds of different recipes that call for different ratios, but I'm going to go with a gallon of water and 25 pounds of sugar. So I'm going to go ahead and get this water in here. Let it start heating up. Now I saw some different recipes. One was 4 parts sugar to 1 part water. I asked ChatGPT and it gave me several different recipes on different occasions for the same question. So I think what I've figured out is that the starting amount of water can be within a range, and it's really kind of like a shock absorber to help you get to the temperature that you're trying to get to, which is 234, 238 degrees without scorching the sugar. So that's what we're going to attempt right now. Now, when it comes to feeding fondant, I've been keeping bees for a long time, 23, 24 years, something like that. And I've never fed fondant. There was one time I made candy boards, long time ago, 15, 20 years ago. I made some candy boards. And I remember using K-Rose syrup. It was a whole big process, and what came out was like a real hard candy. And I've used the mountain camp method once or twice. So to be fair, in our part of the world, fondant isn't really a necessity. This year I'm going to use it kind of as an insurance, just to try it out, see how well it works. And it may be something that we end up doing more of, but right now this is just kind of an experiment. We'll get this mixed up. This is the rig I use for mixing sugar syrup. Seems like it'll work for this. I'm noticing that my thermometer is not where it needs to be, which means I'm going to end up having to hold it as this goes by. Well, that was great. Well, we'll edit that out. That was fun. So I've got an infrared thermometer, and I am going to use it to help figure out when we're getting close, and then I'll use the actual candy thermometer to make sure that we achieve the right temperature, because everything that I've read says that temperature is the key. We've got to get to 234 to 238. We'll turn the heat up. All right, starting to come up. Got my welding gloves for when it comes time to move this big pot. You want to add a little bit of acid to invert the sugar. You could use apple cider vinegar or cream of tartar. I'm going to use some cream of tartar. And I've seen a lot of different things about this, what the right amount is. I'm going to go with about 1.5 teaspoons. Get this mixed in. $51.60 range now. As we get closer to the right temperature, I'll start using the candy thermometer so that we can be very accurate. Temperature is the key to making sure you come out with fondant that's going to be the consistency that you want it to be. Of course, we want it to be malleable enough that the bees can eat it easily, but we don't want it so runny that it's falling down through the frames, and we don't want it super brittle. Put the lid on for a minute, see if that helps us conserve a little heat. It's kind of cool out here today. We've had just a yo-yo kind of winter. We're a few days away from the solstice, and it has been warm, and then it's been really cold. It warms up a little bit. They're calling for some warmer weather, and then possibly another round of really, really cold weather, which is one of the reasons I'm interested in doing some fondant. This is kind of the worst scenario for the bees over winter. If it would just get cold and stay cold, then the bees will cluster up, they'll conserve energy, they'll conserve stores, and it's a little bit easier on them than cold and then warm and cold again, warm again. That roller coaster really has them burning up stores, and when they get out and fly on a nice day, when it gets up upper 50s, lower 60s, they go fly around and there's really not anything for them to work. So they're expending energy and not really bringing anything in. So fondant seems like some cheap insurance put on them, especially this year when we're going to have this roller coaster temperature. All right, 175. All right, we're boiling. Let's give it a stir. All right, so that's super hot and it is expanding. This might be a good time to put on the welding gloves. 218, 217. Let's see what the candy thermometer says. 220. All right, so that's flashing close to our goal. Measure it with the candy thermometer. And if we're close, somewhere between 234 and 238, I will just shut the heat off and then we'll let it cool. We're in the right range. All right, that's got us. We're just going to kill the heat. Check it with the infrared. Yeah, 234 to 238. 239, 237, 233. Perfect. Now we're going to let it cool to 200 degrees or 180 degrees. I've seen both. I think I'll go with 200. So I don't want this to sit up in that pot. Then we'll stir it, pour it into some sheets. So this took a little while to cool off, and in that time my battery died. Got it charged up just enough, so we're at about 196, 197. So I'm gonna go ahead and see if that will show up. So I'm not sure if that's showing up or not. We're in the 190s. All right, let's spin this thing. Now I've seen conflicting information online in the recipes, whether it's supposed to be 180 or 200. I guess if you were going to add anything to it, you would do it at this stage, essential oils or additives. Since this is my first time doing it, I'm just going for the plain fondant. Try to be real careful because this is still close to 200 degrees. All right, hopefully you can see this, but this has turned this fondant white color. Took a lot of spinning to get it there though. All right, so now we're going to move this in, put it on these pans. I have no idea how many I'm going to need, but you can see how many I hope that we need. So let me get this camera set up and we'll bring this in and pour it out. The thermometer says that this is still 167 degrees. So we'll try to do this real careful. Hopefully not make a horrible mess. All right. Looks like 3 sheet pans are going to be enough. Maybe. I've got these already prepared, so I'm going to go ahead and use one more. All right, I'll let this drain upside down right there overnight. Let all this cool, come back and see what it looks like. But there we go. So I suppose at this time, if you wanted to sprinkle some Ultra B or some kind of pollen sub on the top, I guess you could. Like I said, I'm going to do it plain this go round, and then we'll see. All right, so once this is nice and cooled off, we'll take another look. let these cool overnight, and I'm gonna cut them up and try to put some on the bees today. I got a few bees that I think could benefit from this. This piece was a little bit thin, but this is what it looks like after cooling overnight. I'm gonna cut it up with this knife here. Probably would work better with a pizza cutter, but if I take one more thing out of our family kitchen, bring it up here to the honey house, Stephanie's gonna skin me. So we're gonna use the knife. So I'll start out, just put a cut right down the middle. So right off the bat, what I'm noticing is it's pretty thick. It's a little bit grainy, but I think it's going to be okay. There's a little bit of, hadn't set completely, but I think again that's probably going to be okay. I'm going to kind of shoot for this being in, I don't know, maybe I don't know what this will end up being, maybe a pound? 1 pound patty, 1 pound chunk of sugar. I just saw the forecast and they're saying 70 degrees on Christmas Eve. I was looking outside a minute ago. The bees are flying. We're going to be in the mid-60s today. All right, there's our chunk. We'll definitely need a shim to be able to feed that. Let me see if I can tell you how much that weighs. £1 pound, 1 ounce. How about that? See how close I got with the other piece. Of course, that one looks like it's going to break, not make a... Going to break up into chunks. £2 pounds, 2 ounces. All right. So for getting this out to the bees, just gonna fold this up. So it's not quite like a hard candy. It is definitely not like a bakery fondant. Not exactly like a sugar brick. I don't know. Anybody that's got more experience with making fondant for bees or just making fondant in general can leave a comment. Tell me what you think. I'm not sure if it should have cooled off more before we started to mix it. If maybe it wasn't mixed enough. Or maybe this is just the way this comes out with this kind of recipe. Either way it goes, we'll get it on the bees. But for the bee yard I'm going to this afternoon, I think that's going to be plenty. Hunting around in the barn, got a few feed shims, but not nearly enough, so thankfully the One thing I do have plenty of is scrap wood. Pre-stop over in the wood shop, bang out a few feeder shims. Fine carpentry it is not, but it'll work for a feeder shim. So if I remember right, this one was a little on the weak side. Oh yeah, real weak. I had a little bit of honey. Let's see if this helps them out at all. That's what it looks like. Bees have got plenty. I got a single over here, little one. Oh yeah. Let's get them a little something. There we go. Well, there they are, taken right to it. Been a few days since put this fondant on these bees. See if I can take a quick peek, see how they're liking it. So yeah, they're working on it. Final thoughts on the fondant. This experiment, this recipe, first time making this. Was it worth it? Not entirely sure, maybe. The smaller colonies that I put this on, definitely taken to it. They're eating it. We'll see. I'll follow up, do some follow-up videos and just let you know how this turned out, if I think that it was beneficial. I don't think that it can hurt at all. Cheap insurance, if nothing else. Some of the things that I like about this, like I said, it's cheap insurance. The bees are taken to it. Easy to do, something that can be fed to the bees when it's cooler outside. What I don't like about it is this did not come out with the texture that I had hoped it would when I'm cutting this up and trying to get this into some kind of a block that I can take out and put on the bees. It's kind of breaking up into more like a sugar brick than a fondant. A texture issue, a consistency issue. I guess that could be because of temperature, could have been because of stirring it. at the wrong time or not cooling it down fast enough, and maybe it needed to be kneaded more. I don't know. I'll play around with it, experiment with it some more, and see how that goes. We'll make another video when we do that, maybe a fondant part 2. Maybe play around with some additives to it, maybe some essential oils or even pollen or something along those lines. I think that could be beneficial too. But overall, like I say, it can't hurt. We will put this on the bees and give it a shot. If you've got some ideas or some comments on making fondant and getting it to a better consistency than this kind of sugar brick type consistency, it's a little bit grainy. And like I say, it's brittle, kind of comes apart a little bit. So if you've got some ideas on that, please leave it in the comments. Otherwise, look forward to seeing you in the next one. If you like what you're seeing, you know what to do. Thanks a lot.